So welcome back, Whitney.
Hi.
You look really nice. Are you going somewhere?
Thanks. Honestly, I was I was trying to dress up a little bit to kind of lift my mood. I just haven't been doing well at all. So I thought maybe if I dressed up and put on some makeup, it would help.
Has it helped?
Um, Kind of. I mean, it always feels nice to look pretty, but it's more of a momentary help. It's not really sinking in super deep.
So tell me about this last week. What's it been like for you since we last met?
It's been rough, if I would be honest.
Okay.
I really have not wanted to do anything. Haven't had the energy. People have invited me to do things and I just don't want to. And I've kind of forced myself to go to work because I have to. I don't want to take time off. I don't want people to worry about me. I don't want to. I don't want to. I don't have the energy to whatever.
Have you been sleeping more than you had been?
Here and there, some nights are better than others, but there's still nights where I'm not sleeping very well. So I don't know that that's really improved a ton.
Okay. And then when we last talked, you had said you hadn't done any basketball with your friends. You've taken a pause on other stuff. So your friends have called you, but you haven't actually participated in anything outside of just going to work. Okay. And have you had any contact with your parents this week?
No, not this week.
Okay. And how about your brother?
We've checked in to say hi, but we haven't really talked in depth about much. So,
okay,
not yet.
And I remember you saying one of the things that you really wanted to come out of this was you were hoping for kind of some more communication tools or skills that you could bring to your family scenario. So what I did in the last week is I looked around at some of the local resources, and what I wanted to talk to you about was kind of breaking down those big picture goals. You kind of mentioned, I feel like a shell of myself. You said I don't really have energy. I haven't been doing the things that I love to do. I want to get my life back. I want to feel like myself again. So I thought, okay, how can we make that a measurable goal that we can work towards? Because I want you to feel in the process like there are tangible things that you're doing that are moving you forward in your journey. So the first thing I wanted to do was set you up as far as getting some more knowledge and information about depression. You were very curious about whether or not your symptoms coincided, whether or not you needed to do any kind of medication. So we have a connection at our agency with a couple different therapists in the area, one of whom is a psychotherapist and a licensed marriage and family therapist, and his name is Dr. Pender. And he has an office out of Marshall Medical, if you know where that is. Okay. I was considering if you were able to meet with him, what I was going to suggest was maybe in the next, let's say, month and a half. It's the 20th today. So if by July 31st you went and saw him 3 times, does that seem like something that would be doable? That's not an every week. That's maybe once every 2 weeks you meet with him. And one of the things that you could work towards is doing an initial depression assessment, deciding whether or not he would diagnose you as depressed. And if so, then you can make the determination, what should I do about that? Do I want to do medication? Do I want to just continue with therapy? But I think talking to a licensed professional who sees this all the time is like taking your car to a mechanic and saying, I've got this noise. I don't know what it is. And he goes, oh, I see that all the time. It's this, and this. But it would require that you'd be calling him to make the appointment. You'd be attending those appointments. How does that feel in terms of something that's manageable for you at this point? Or does that?
I mean, it seems manageable.
Yeah.
A month out, 3 times on paper.
Yeah.
But I think I just need to start with the initial and meet him.
Yes.
And if I feel safe and it seems like he's someone I can actually interact with comfortably, then I guess I'd go from there.
I like that attitude. And you know what? That's the goal. We want baby steps, right? We just
Mhm.
want the next step to move you forward. We're not trying to get all the way down there, but every goal ultimately, every big overwhelming goal is just a series of sub goals, right?
Yeah.
So we're just making those. I like to do lists. I don't know if you do, but I like to be able to check things off. Say, oh, I did this. So hopefully that will give you a sense of momentum as you maybe make that appointment. It's, oh yeah, done. I checked that off. Okay, what's the next thing? Now, if you decide that Dr. Pender is someone that you're comfortable meeting with and that you connect well and you feel that kind of sense of rapport, he also runs a support group for people who have experienced loss, and that can be anything from loss of a loved one, end of a relationship, divorce. So my thought was, especially because in your case you've expressed, I just don't know a lot of people that are in my stage of life that are seeing their parents now divorce. My suspicion is there are more people than you think, but being in a support group offers you an opportunity to meet with other people who, in a sense, get it, right?
Mhm.
They're not just your friends who are nodding and listening and saying, okay, but they're people who can actually say, me too. I
Mhm.
experienced that. I know what that feels like. Um, and I think that would allow you to build relationships and connections with people that maybe otherwise you would never know, but you can bond on this really unique life
Mhm.
circumstance that might give you the opportunity to just feel less alone.
That would be nice.
Yeah, yeah,
That would be nice.
yeah. And also, I think what's helpful about a group therapy scenario for you, Whitney, is that what you're describing is feeling overwhelmed by being around people. Even going to work is like, I'm exhausted, but I'm making myself do it because I don't want to get fired. I think a support group, I would compare it to going into your living room and just seeing a blanket sitting on the couch for you. Like it's something you could just kind of collapse into and feel
Yes.
enveloped by.
I mean, I have people who come into the bank and it's so hard. I mean, I
Mm,
want to be able to celebrate people's joy,
mm,
but at this point, it's so raw that it's hard for me to not just feel a fresh set of grief when I see a married couple who are so in love and so
mm,
everything seems great. And I just wonder, like, what are they not saying to each other? Or, it reminds me of my parents, when I was younger, or, and you just that fresh grief of how could it fall apart, when it seems so wonderful, and, a bit of jealousy, I guess. And I don't know. I just, yeah, it's
kind of
so
reopens
hard.
that wound.
Yeah.
Mm. When that happens, how does that change the way that you behave in the context of work? Let's say you're behind the counter, you see a sweet couple come in, they're really lovey-dovey. Go. What happens to your countenance? How does that change your interactions with them?
I think I probably lose energy. I just kind of sag is the best word I can describe my countenance. Sag.
Yeah.
You see it, and all of a sudden you just sag inside and out. And try to, if I'm the one helping them, then of course I try to remain a pleasantry. But after they leave, just the effort of maintaining a pleasantry can make me want to excuse myself and go in the back room and cry. But if it's somebody else helping them, I don't know, just get really quiet and try to keep it together and do my thing over here, whatever I'm doing. And I don't know, it's just a big like energizer.
So it's almost like a physical weight that it takes on where you're carrying it and it feels so heavy that you just are like, your whole body is sort of slumping under the pressure of it or the feeling of it.
And then a lot of times, even just one interaction like that can just overtake the whole day. And then I'll go home and not have any energy because, all the thoughts start rolling around. And sometimes I'll go home and I just want to take a nap. And then if I take a nap, then obviously I don't sleep a full night. And so, yeah.
And what do you do when you're up at night? If you have insomnia and you can't sleep, how do you deal with that? Do you watch TV? Do you read books? Do you journal? What activities do you do to get you through that time?
I think I just try to take my mind off of it. So I mean, sometimes I might journal. I think at the start I maybe journaled more, but as that hasn't really helped alleviate it, I just am like, well, I need to. I mean, sometimes I'll pray, but sometimes I'm just trying to find videos that are upbeat, happy, beautiful, just to get my mind off of it.
Yeah. That's interesting that you brought that up. I'm glad that you mentioned that you've been journaling. It's at least a good therapeutic exercise, but it's helpful to know that that's not something that you feel like is helping you. I wonder though, because you mentioned specifically seeing people come into the bank is really hard on you. And I was gonna suggest actually maybe as one of your sub goals within your main goal, in terms of gaining knowledge about depression and your own depression specifically, if it wouldn't be helpful in this next week, every day for you to log anything that triggers the depression, anything that causes that feeling in you where you just start to slump or sag. Identifying what your triggers are. So writing down, saw a couple come into the bank today. They looked really happy. And then I would want you to indicate on your log, is that a trigger that you can control or not control, right? You can't control whether or not a couple walks into the bank, but you may be able to control how you respond in that moment or what your coping mechanism is, right? You've indicated that sometimes you go into the back room to cry. Is that helpful? Is it not helpful? How does it change the rest of the trajectory of your day? But I think if you kept a log, it's kind of like people who struggle with eating. They're not very aware of what they're actually consuming. But when they stop and they write down like, oh, I ate this and this is how I felt, or I ate this and this is how I felt, you start to notice those observable changes that you can manipulate to go, oh, if I eat more of this food, that makes me feel better, and less of this food that makes me feel worse. In the same way, believe it or not, I think there are things that may be within your control, or if an element is not something that you can specifically control, controlling your response, changing your coping mechanism. But for this week, how would you feel about just taking down notes about anything that triggers, keeping maybe a piece of paper with you or a notebook, where anytime something you just really sense that it's triggering your depression, you stop and you take a second and you just write it down, in my control or out of my control. And then we can talk about that, or you can talk about it with your therapist.
I'll try that.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it seems easy enough, right?
I like your attitude, Whitney. I think you seem very open to getting better, to trying new things, which I appreciate. Okay, one other thing that you talked about was that your physical health, you didn't have the same energy. You weren't doing a lot of the stuff that you loved. Have you gone running at all this week?
Movement does tend to help. Running takes a lot of energy.
Yeah.
I haven't gone running, but I have gone out on a few walks.
Okay.
Just to try to just get, stay moving.
Yeah. Yeah. Good for you. Now, when you tend to run, do you prefer to run in the morning, in the afternoon, evening? When's the best time for you typically?
Well, I'm definitely more of a night owl. So
okay.
Usually in the evening after work
Okay.
or after activities. Now that it's summertime and the lights out longer, obviously it's easier to go later when it's cooler after activities. So
Okay.
I mean, not that I'm doing any activities.
Yeah, no, I get it. What if we set a goal for you of doing one run within the next week? Not even, it could be like, what's a typical run in the past for you? What would be a normal length of run?
Like 30 minutes. I usually go by time, not so much distance.
Okay, so a 30-minute run. What if we made your goal for this week a 10-minute run? Not something that's 30 whole minutes, but almost like a fast-paced walk, right?
Yeah.
Just for 10 minutes. And then if you felt good, you could keep going. But your goal would be at least one time in the next week to do a 10-minute run.
I could try that.
Or do you think, is that a reasonable length, or would you want it to be shorter? I want something that you're going to say, I know I can do that. 5 minutes, I can do that, right? Or 8 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever. If you think that's if that's reasonable. I know your exhaustion and your energy levels are low. So I want it to be something that you feel, yes, I could do that. What's that amount for you?
I could shoot for 10 minutes.
Okay. Let's try for 10. And it can be any day this week. And it could be morning, afternoon, evening, but your only goal is just log one run, 10 minutes, and do that. So that I think would help your energy levels. And we also want to work on regulating your sleep, because like you said, if you take that nap in the afternoon, you might have a hard time sleeping at night. You start ruminating, you're thinking about all the stuff. So we want to regulate your sleep cycle so that you're back into a healthier rhythm. And one of the easiest ways to do that is by consistency in wake up time. It's helpful to try and go to bed at the same time, but in cases where you can't, let's say you're up late and you're so, oh man, I can't sleep. You still want to try and get up at the same time every day. So I was going to ask you, if we set a goal, what is you're a night owl. So what time do you normally go to bed?
Well, lately the normal's been very abnormal.
Sure.
But I think when I was more normal, it was like 11.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like to encourage you that I'm gonna write this down. So what if we said your goal in this next week is to be in bed by 11 p.m. more nights than not? Doesn't mean every night this week, if you're not in bed by 11, you failed. It just means your goal is to try and get into bed by 11. That means laying there ready to go to sleep, even if you can't sleep, but that you're in a routine where you're getting into your bed ready to wind down by 11. Is
that might be hard.
okay? Talk to me about that.
But I mean, if you're not tired, you're not tired.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess it's helpful to have someone challenge me in all these things so that I have someone to report to. I mean, if it's just me, I just keep doing. So I mean, I can try and just see how it goes.
If that feels overwhelming, we could scratch that goal and just make your goal to wake up by the same time. And the goal would be to wake up by, what time do you go to work? What time do you start work?
No earlier than 8:30.
Okay.
So that might be easier to do the wake up time.
Okay. Then we're going to scratch this one for right now. We'll come back. We'll maybe circle back to that in a couple weeks, seeing how you feel.
Yeah.
But let's try what's a good wake up time that gets you up, eating breakfast, and out the door at a reasonable time that doesn't stress you out on your way into work.
Like 7 or 7:30.
Okay. So if we said wake up by 7 a.m. more days this week than not, does that sound reasonable?
That seems like something I could shoot for.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. We like that. Check there. Okay. And then how do you feel about re-entry into your basketball world? You had friends that you could pick up with?
I'm not ready yet.
Not ready yet. Okay. What do you think it would look like for you to be ready? What would have to change?
I'd have to be able to laugh and be joyful without feeling like I'm lying, even if I don't fully feel it. And I'd have to know how to respond when they ask about me in a way that doesn't make them want to start giving me advice or make me want to cry, or I'd have to be ready with some kind of response, which I haven't figured out yet.
Okay, that just triggered a thought then. If finding your joy and being in a sincere and authentic place of joy and happiness is a prerequisite to you entering into basketball stuff again, let's take the basketball stuff off the table for right now. I'm going to cross that off. And let's think about the joy component. You're already going to be logging your triggers for depression. Could we, by a week from now, could you have compiled a list of 10 things that are life-giving for you, or that really you enjoy? They make you feel a sense of happiness or joy. You don't have to actually do them, but your goal is to write down 10 things that you just, man, when I get a handwritten letter in the mail, or when I do a piece of artwork, or when I watch this one movie, anything. It could be, anything that's really life-giving, but
I can do that. I can do that. I don't know that it'll help very much.
What makes you think it would?
I think the doctor you mentioned, Dr. Pender, just having someone to talk through it all with, because my biggest struggle is how to process it. And I think once I know how to process it, once I know how to communicate about it a little better, that'll be the biggest help. Because going into anywhere, I feel like I can't say stop being so joyful, and I can't say explain why I feel that way, and I can't, because I don't want to ruin them, but I don't know how to talk about it, I guess. So I think helping me know how to talk about it in a safe space will probably be the best thing.
Yes.
Because as I've told you, I've just gone over and over and over again in my own brain and in my own space, but there's no one there to give feedback right away. And so it's just me going around in circles. And I just think having that talk is a great suggestion. And I think that might be the best. So I don't know that I could do the list, but I just don't know that would really help anything.
So what you're looking for is more practical communication, or not communication specifically, but processing tools.
Yeah.
Things that help you make sense of what's happened,
Yeah.
articulate it in a way that people can understand, and give you the ability to work through that. Okay, that's good. And actually, because I remembered you saying you really wanted more transparency in your relationships, and you wanted skills for addressing some of that with your family in particular, one of the things I had thought was that support group might actually also be a great place where you can start applying some of those tools as Dr. Pender or whoever your therapist ends up being, as they're working through that with you and giving you the tools. You might even have opportunities to simulate conversations with family members in the context of a safe group where everyone's just, processing and dealing, to practice using some of those skills. If your parent says this, how do you respond to them? And then you talk through what was good about that interaction, what was helpful, what was not helpful, what did you notice in yourself, that kind of thing. So I think by attending that support group, you're going to have real application opportunities for the skills and the tools that you're gaining through therapy, which is, I think, would be really helpful. And then tell me about going to church. Has that been something that you've done at all in the last, well, I guess there's only been one opportunity in the last week, but did you go last Sunday?
I did. And I did talk to a few people. We need to be in fellowship to encourage each other.
And to be encouraged.
But I can't handle the volume. So I kind of have snuck in the back and kind of stayed on the peripheral, just because I didn't want to have to talk to a ton of people, because that just would be overwhelming too. But I have gone.
Good.
Yeah.
I was going to suggest that we make your goal attending church at least 2 times in the next month. So it's not an every Sunday. And I want to give you permission to do exactly that. If you want to sleep in the morning and sneak in a little bit late, sit in the back, and then maybe get up right before everything is ending, that's okay. But I applaud you for getting up and still making the choice to go, knowing that it's something that will be good for you. Again, it's knowing this will be good for me, even though it's hard for me. You're recognizing that there is benefit in it, and that's good. I had another thought, but I could ask you about it, but we might not be there yet. One of the things you mentioned was that you had pulled back from doing any formal mentorship stuff with your church, but you're also kind of in a place in your life where you're trying to figure out your next steps and direction, and not wanting to be at the bank forever. And I've seen it happen a lot of times where clients of mine who are very depressed or just overwhelmed by circumstances in their lives, when things lighten up enough and they're able to step out and do, for example, volunteer work, that ends up being something that surprisingly enough takes them outside of their stuff enough that they have the opportunity to go, oh wow, this really makes me feel good. And I thought about the Boys and Girls Club of Placerville, right? Which they have after school programs, not in the summer, but they have other stuff happening in the summer. But I wondered if down the line, if that was something you would have any interest in, if that appeals to you at all, or if it's like, not really. Maybe not now. Maybe it needs a little time, but that was on my radar as something that I thought, oh, I bet Whitney would be a really great mentor. And it's not a mentor in the sense of you're having to tell them major life decisions. You're just helping them with their schoolwork or doing something that's very practical. But I think it could meet a mutual need for those kids and also for you. So that'll be something that I'll table for now, but we'll circle back to maybe in a couple months and see how things are looking. So how do you feel about everything that we've talked about?
I feel like there's some actionable steps. There's not too many.
Okay,
but
it's good. You don't want there to be too many.
Yes, but there's enough that I think I can walk through.
Okay.
So
yes, good.
Good.
Well, you, like I said, I know you're doing the fake it till you make it in terms of getting yourself put together and looking nice, but you really do, you look better since the last time that I saw you. And I'm just going to encourage you, baby steps, right? One small step in the direction you want to go. What's the proverb? The journey of 1,000 miles begins with only a single step. Yeah. So that's where we are. And we're going to just keep moving forward. But yeah, I just applaud you, Whitney, because you're already taking the steps and recognizing, there's some things that are helpful to me and some things that are not. And I'm going to get myself dressed up and looking nice, even though I don't feel nice. It might help my mood. So you're thinking, and that's good. So
thank you.
Let's plan to meet back in a week. And at that point, we'll check up and I'll see about your appointment, if you've made the appointment with Dr. Pender, if you've had a chance to meet him or not. And then we'll go from there.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.